So about 8 years ago, we lost several donors, several of our, stewards, if you want to think of it that way, who either passed away or moved elsewhere, and so we lost a significant part of our income about that point in time, and we thought that it would sort of, you know, it would come back. We were faithful, and we thought that the Lord would take care of us. And about 5 years ago, it became obvious that we were spending and keeping our programs and things at the level that they had been, but our income had dropped off, and so we were taking money out of our savings.
When our savings started getting really depleted, we knew we had to make a change because we were going to run out of money. We could not continue like we were. And so that's when we put a sustainable strategies committee together.
We realized when we put pen to paper and was working on our budget that we really needed to look at what our income and expenses were. And we made projections out, and we realized for 8 years, 5 years,
Yeah.
a while. And we'd never done that before. And I think that for me as a treasurer, and I think I speak for the vestry, is that's what really spurred us into, oh my gosh, this is real. And if we don't do something, we're not going to be here after a few years. So that was really the impetus to help us be honest and to be real about we've got to do something.
So about that time, we contacted the diocese, or the diocese was aware of our situation, and they were very helpful in terms of making suggestions, coming, actually touring our facilities, talking with us about our financial situation and different options that we could do. And one of the things I think was really important in that period was actually communicating and convincing the congregation that there was a problem that needed to be addressed, and the seriousness of that. And that actually took a little while. People just didn't quite see that, but eventually they did, and the congregation really came together. And we did some brainstorming where we were trying to figure out different ways to raise funds, to cut expenses, and those were the sort of two approaches that we used. I mean, that's kind of what you have to do.
And we have. I think we've been proactive. I think that has helped us tremendously, of not just sit and say, oh, woe is me, what are we going to do? We really, as I said, we made some difficult decisions, did a lot of talking about what we wanted to do. How are we going to do it?
So I'm an assistant treasurer and also currently serve as senior warden on the vestry. Just to reiterate a couple of things Pat said, and as she said, for several years we've been operating in a deficit situation, and we have had very good fortune to be able to have had lots of meetings with folks from the diocesan office, Canon Easterlin and Canon Lash. We were able to meet with them in person. We met with them via Zoom. So they were with us as we were beginning to make these difficult decisions, and that we appreciate their support from the diocesan office tremendously.
They supported us and they gave us ideas, but St. George is the one that made the decisions.
Absolutely.
They did not come and say, okay, you need to do this, this, this.
Absolutely.
They did not.
So once the vestry made the difficult decision to reduce the rector's salary, we sat with Father David and wanted to make sure that we could collectively define how his limited time would be spent at St. George's so we could share that to the congregation. And collectively, the vestry and Father David wanted to focus Father David's time on worship. So the priest would do those things that I say the priest does, and let the rest of us do the things that the priest doesn't have to do.
And then our priest, our rector, accepted a call to another congregation. And so that at that point, as the senior warden, it kind of fell on me to try and keep things, you know, going along with the other vestry members and the members of our congregation. And we were fortunate that in our community, we had Father Beekner, who was a retired priest from another parish here in Thomasville. And we were able to hire him as a part-time priest uh, with the idea that he would be an interim and he would serve part-time. And so that was how we got into this part-time model initially. And that was never intended to be sort of the permanent solution. But and in fact, the diocese was actually recommending that we not go down that road because they were concerned that it wasn't, going to be sustainable in the long term. We discovered during this period that we were able to, keep working and keep the doors open and do things with part-time priest. And so coming out of the other side of the COVID period, and when we needed to look for, full-time clergy member, we broached the idea of possibly having a part-time priest.
As I was discerning a call to this place, I felt a call to want to be bivocational, and this was a great opportunity. I'd had a decade of full-time ministry, but I really felt a call to be bivocational. Words that when Bishop Logan and I were talking about this being an opportunity for death and resurrection at St. Thomas. And I remember my opening address at the annual meeting, my first annual meeting, and how a lot of people in Thomasville thought what we were really going to do is be bivocational and have the church kind of eventually close down. And that's not the narrative. The narrative I've tried to convey is this is resurrection. This is a new way of doing things. And we have been extremely successful, I think, in doing this. And I think a lot of that success has to do with the leadership of those who've come before. I think Father Beekner as interim rector, Father Veras as the previous rector, Reverend Judy set a foundation, a spiritual foundation for this church to really be able to try this, to take this leap of faith.
And I think to me, it's a little weird in that you feel, or I'll just speak for me, I feel more invested. It's like we're not putting everything on our rector. It's like, okay, he's not here. Who's going to do this? How are we going to do it? And I think it's made, and I think I can speak for everybody probably, but it's made us step out and like, okay, how are we going to do this?
I think for us, making this difficult decision was the end of last year, the end of 2022. When the vestry made this decision, it was announced to the congregation in January of 2023. And since then, it has allowed us to finally have these conversations out loud with the whole congregation. And each conversation has been easier to have. And as Pat said, a lot of folks are like, oh, well, have we thought of this or have we tried that? And coming up with ideas. And we keep stressing we are all St. George's, and all of us at St. George's need to come together to continue doing what we do here at St. George's. And I really do think that we're having that effect.
We are in a new place compared to where we were 5 years ago in terms of the awareness of the congregation for that all of this stuff doesn't happen in a vacuum. It doesn't, you don't just show up on Sunday morning and once in a while, do a, bring some food for the coffee hour or something like that. It's more that everybody has to be working all the time on things.
I mean, I think the struggle in this for me is to not work 40-hour week because I've got another job. And I think the education, I think the church has realized that. And some of it means the priest just says, I have another job. I can't do this on this day. And that's the reality. And so from teaching, I kind of had to keep my office hours at the first part of the week and be on campus because I had campus responsibilities. I still do have campus responsibilities on the latter half of the week.
We have cut back on some things as a result of having a priest who's bivocational and having to work, part-time at another job in addition to being our priest in charge.
like they've talked about, there are lots of things that are going on at St. George's now that are lay led. And that's really important because it's the vibrancy of what lay leaders can bring to the community.
In pastoral care, I think is another big thing. We have good lay leaders here that take pastoral care seriously. If they think father or mother has to answer every pastoral call, it's very difficult to do as a bivocational clergy person.
But that was one of the things that a lot of people were worried about closing St. George's. And I'm like, well, you don't have to close St. George's. It will just have a different expression, because I want people who come in on Sunday to make sure that they're like, oh, this is the St. George's that I picked. I don't want to, and I've seen this in other places. When you make changes, they're like, oh, it's not as good, you know. And that's been the miraculous thing is I can't think of any one thing that anyone has ever said like, oh, now that we're doing this, we're not doing that anymore.
And we are self-leading ourselves in Bible study, which is kind of a challenge, but it's working.
And we have more people actually, which is interesting. We have more people coming to Bible study now than we did 2 years ago.
Well, we had suspended during COVID for lots of different reasons, and so we've been able to bring it back, and that's been nice. Father David participates with us, but he's not leading, so we are each do a little bit more homework, which is probably good for us in that regard.
And I think that's real important to note that we are not focused on money. I am, Kim is, being assistant treasurer, because we look at that all the time. But the things that we do, like the Women's Shelter, didn't have anything to do with money. We're trying to help people. We're trying to do what Jesus would want us to do.
And the commitment of all of the members of the church, and the concern and care that we receive from the diocese, all of that worked together in our favor. And I think that we just weren't going to give up, and you know, the diocese wasn't going to give up on us.
I think for me, it's a matter of hope that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and bringing people together, bringing our parishioners together to, all right, this is a problem we have, how are we going to fix it? And hope, I think that's what I felt that day in church, where it just gave me goosebumps. It's like, we have hope. If we do at some point have to close our doors, we're going to go down fighting. And I think that's important. And it's not just us. I mean, we represent all our parishioners. So hope is important, I think.
Right.
But if you keep looking, the answer is there. It's provided. I think if you step out in faith, you will find that you're rewarded. I think that's my feeling about how we got through that.
I think it's important to note that we're not just sitting back. We're not finished yet, and we realize we don't have all the answers. That's why we want to talk to other churches that are in similar situations. But we're trying to find the people, the individuals or the groups or the organizations or whatever that can give us some ideas. We realize they can't tell us what to do. I don't think anybody can go to a church and say, okay, if you do this and this and this, you're going to be fine. I think it's like throwing out ideas and then like, okay, we can't do that, but we can do a piece of that. And I think that's real important.
We looked at trying to, possibly rent out office space in some of our unused parts of our campus and things like that. Lots of different things that we considered, tried. Things don't always work the first time. Some things don't work at all. But if you keep trying things,
Yeah, I would say just don't give up. We had a lot of really rough times and a lot of doom and gloom vestry meetings, and it was difficult. And we wanted to give up at times, but we all love St. Thomas, and we did not want to see the doors close. And so with our dedicated team, and it was our past priest, our interim priest, our current priest, our vestry
our
members,
deacon.
our deacon, our day school board, and countless other parishioners who were just dedicated to St. Thomas. And we thought outside the box, tried everything we could think of. And, you know, we still have progress to make, but we've come a long way, and just don't give up.